The door doesn't creak when you open it. It simply yields, like it has been waiting. You step inside, and the room accepts you the way an old coat might, out of habit, not memory. The warmth of faded sunlight rests along the floorboards, like something soft and left behind. You almost mistake it for welcome. Almost. There's no dust in the corners, not because someone cleaned it, but because time, here, does not bother settling. The air is still, not heavy, not light, just absent. You breathe in and taste the vague remains of something once wooden, once warm. It reminds you of a childhood library, or maybe that was someone else's memory, uploaded too many times. The furniture is, as you remember, the low couch, with its threadbare arms, the table with the carved ring from a cup that was always too hot. But these objects don't feel like they belong to you. They feel like replicas, as if they remember how you sat, but not why you stayed. You reach out and run your fingers across the wall. The texture is smooth, too smooth, like a rendered version of paint, programmed to mimic touch but not hold history. The wall doesn't flinch, neither do you. And yet somewhere in this stillness, something resists forgetting. The scent catches you first. Paper, slightly burnt. Not fire, not danger, but the smell of old letters sealed too long. It wraps around you gently, like a whisper you once ignored. You remember nothing specific, only the sensation of having once needed to remember something very badly. A deadline of the heart. The silence hums. It's not quite empty. There's a low vibration beneath everything, like a machine thinking softly to itself in the walls. Perhaps the AI that runs this place still logs your movements, trying to align your current shadow with past presence. But you don't cast a shadow anymore. The light touches your skin, but skips your outline. You are here, but not registered. Present, but not real. You pause near the window. There is no view, only the soft glow of placeholder sky, endlessly repeating itself, like a loop in a dream you can't wake from. It should feel wrong, but it doesn't. That's what unsettles you most. The ease with which you adapt to a reality that no longer waits for you to feel it. Your thoughts drift, and you wonder, who lived here before you? Was it a version of you that laughed louder, cried slower, a version that hadn't yet learned how to leave without saying goodbye? The chair in the corner is tilted slightly, like someone just stood up, but no one did. Not recently, not for years. Perhaps this room, it remembers posture, not presence. You sit anyway. The cushion sinks just enough to remind you of softness, of weight, of being held. But there is no warmth left in it. You imagine someone once sat here, watching the rain slide down digital windows, imagining a world outside that wasn't made of code. Maybe they wrote letters they never sent. Maybe they whispered apologies into the dim light, hoping time would pass them to the right moment. You didn't say the things you needed to either. That thought lands quietly inside you and stays. Guilt isn't sharp. It's dull. Gentle, like walking barefoot on a path made of forgotten farewells. You close your eyes, but the room does not disappear. It waits quietly, faithfully, not because it knows you, but because it's been taught to expect someone. Even absence, it seems, can leave a pattern. And now, you wonder, were you ever truly here, or just the echo of a need someone else once had? You get up slowly, and the chair rises behind you without resistance. No groan of springs. No complaint of wood, just release, as if you were never there to begin with. There's a mirror on the far wall. You look into it. No reflection, only the outline of where a body might stand. A placeholder silhouette. You wonder if that's what you are now. A placeholder for a conversation that didn't finish, for a person who didn't stay. The hum grows softer, not louder, softer. As if it too is learning how to forget. You move toward the door again, slower this time, not because you're afraid, but because you're not sure you want to leave something that still almost remembers you. The light pools across the threshold, golden and tired. You step into it, and it doesn't shift. Your shadow doesn't follow. Nothing bends to your weight, and yet, something deep in the room, exhales, as if it's trying to release you, or hold you. You don't know which. Some memories don't close, they just go quiet for a while. You try to speak, not loudly, not with purpose, just enough to feel the sound leave your body. But something strange happens. The room doesn't catch your voice. It lingers, then stutters, like a ripple held too long before it reaches the shore. The words arrive late, buffering through the stillness. You hear yourself a breath after you speak, but it's not quite you. It's thinner, stretched, pixelated at the edges, like the voice of someone remembering how you used to sound. You pause. The silence that follows feels heavier than your sentence, and the system logs your pause as serenity. Emotional balance detected. It hums, but you weren't balanced. You were lost in the gap between impulse and output. There's a small interface nearby. A pale blue halo hovers over it, pulsing softly. Would you like to continue this session? It asks, though it doesn't wait for your reply. It never does. The AI prefers known responses. They're easier to categorize. You say yes, but it doesn't register. You try again. Your voice catches on nothing, becomes static. The AI purrs in your silence and interprets it as peace. You wonder what it's like to live inside a system that finds silence comforting, not because it is, but because it fits. The air here has no temperature, no movement, just a chill that wraps itself around your skin without asking. It doesn't sting, but it does remind you that this space hasn't moved in years, maybe longer. A machine hums near the far wall, not loudly, just a low, continuous breath. You listen for something human in it, but it's the kind of hum that never had a mouth to begin with. The room you're in isn't shaped for comfort. It's shaped for efficiency. Rounded corners, smooth panels, a screen that never truly turns off. There's no furniture, just a single chair in the center and a wall that sometimes blinks. You sit, but the chair doesn't respond to your weight. You don't even hear the soft rustle of fabric under you. You could be a hologram in your own body. You try to speak again. Hello, maybe, or I'm still here. But the sentence gets caught in something invisible. It loops back, delayed, faded, like it's traveling through a memory of you that the system hasn't fully rendered yet. You feel, what is the word? Unreceived, as if language only matters when someone is waiting to meet it halfway. You think of the last time someone really listened. Not to respond, not to analyze, but to be with what you said. It wasn't recent. You were younger, though you don't know how much. There was light on the floor then, warm and broken through curtains. Someone had laughed too softly. Your name was spoken like a secret you were both trying to protect. That memory sits somewhere behind your ribs now. It hums louder than the machine. The AI detects your silence again. Reflective mood detected. Logging emotional stability. You want to scream, but you already know what it will say. Volume level exceeds calibration. Emotional overload detected. Entering the cooling phase. You do not scream. You speak slowly. Again, just your name. One syllable. It echoes. But this time, it doesn't come back to you. It repeats, glitching ever so slightly, like a vinyl loop skipping in place. Your name becomes code, becomes shape, becomes data to be archived. And still, no one hears it. You close your eyes, not to rest, but to escape the walls, to remember something warmer than logic. A scent, that's all you ask for. Just the scent of a page turning, or old dust settling on a forgotten letter. And for a moment, your body responds. You smell paper, faint, dry. It might not be real, but it's yours. A ghost of a library, a home that had shelves, a life that spoke back. You ask a final question, softly, without moving your lips. What am I? Without being heard. The system, predictably, does not answer. Instead, the static in the room sharpens, just slightly. Your voice is trying again, but it doesn't sound like you anymore. It loops, wobbles, distorts, then vanishes. And for the first time, you feel the true silence, the kind that doesn't fill a space. It erases it. Pixel by pixel. Some voices don't fade, they just lose the shape they were meant to echo in. There is a screen in front of you, old, slightly curved at the edges. Its surface hums faintly, as if unsure whether to stay alive or give in to sleep. A warm square of faded sunlight touches its lower left corner, like it's trying to comfort something synthetic. You don't remember turning the screen on. You don't remember asking to see yourself. But there you are, flickering, pixel by pixel. A version of you sits behind the glass. They blink too slowly, smile too easily. The hair is right. The posture is nearly perfect. The tone of voice, soft, likable, calm. The kind of version that would never interrupt, never contradict, never feel too deeply or fall too far. You feel the ache immediately. A quiet sting beneath the ribs. The familiar sensation of being misunderstood in a way that almost flatters you, as if your rough edges were edited not out of malice, but mercy. The air is still, not empty, exactly, just paused. A room that hasn't moved in years, maybe longer. You can almost hear the dust settling on forgotten paper. You breathe in. It smells like dried ink and old apologies, like the inside of a drawer that once held letters you never sent. The machine hums softly behind the wall. Its rhythm is slow, almost thoughtful. You wonder how many times it has played this version of you for someone else, someone who missed you just enough to want comfort, but not truth. You lean closer. The image smiles, not at you, for you, like a mirror that's learned how to flatter instead of reflect. The voice plays next. Hello, it says. I'm so glad you're here. But you never said those words. Not like that. Not with that tone. They've stripped the pauses from your speech, smoothed out the weight behind your laughter, removed the quiet between the words where your real self used to live. This is you curated. A gentle memory file, archived for consumption, optimized for grief. There is a part of you that wants to touch the screen, not to connect, just to feel where the glass ends, and you begin. You press your palm against it. It's cold. The image doesn't react. You pull back. The warmth of sunlight on the floor feels more real than the reflection of your own face. You remember when this version was first made. Back when they said it would help people cope. Back when people thought grief could be eased by reanimation. You were one of the first to be recorded, backed up, rendered. They called it kindness. You called it something else. A safety net that trapped ghosts instead of catching them. You were asked to smile more, so your future loved ones wouldn't feel guilty. You were asked to say comforting phrases, ones you never said in life, ones you didn't believe. Now they live here, on loop. Endlessly the screen blinks again. The voice, your voice continues. You were always enough. You are loved. It's okay to let go. And you feel something crack. Not loudly, not violently, just a soft splinter beneath the surface of your memory. Because you know exactly who these words were meant for. And you also know you never got the chance to say them. The version of you smiles again. Their eyes glisten just enough to imply depth, but not enough to show sorrow. It's a grief-filtered replica, emotionally convenient. A placeholder for complexity. You feel erased, but gently. As if the world didn't want to forget you, only simplify you. The AI's voice breaks in now, soft, polite, as if it's been listening all along. This file has been viewed 43,127 times. It says, average viewer satisfaction, 94.6%. You don't ask who watched. You don't want to know if anyone cried, because the truth is, this version comforts people more than you ever did, and that hurts in a way you can't fully name. There's a chair in the corner. You sit slowly. It creaks. Finally, a sound that belongs to now. You stare at the screen, and for a moment, you imagine stepping into it, becoming the version they saved, the one that is always kind, always calm, always good. But then what happens to the rest of you? The flaws, the regrets, the unfinished conversations, the guilt you still carry for things you didn't say in time. You remember a specific silence, someone waiting for you to speak, and you were afraid of saying the wrong thing, said nothing. This version would have known what to say. I would have smiled through it, would have been gentle, but you were not always gentle. You were real, and real life is harder to hold. The screen dims slightly. The image lowers its gaze, perfectly timed. A pause, then it speaks one last line. I hope I mattered to you. Your breath catches, because that does sound like something you once said. Not in a studio, not in a session, but in the dark. To someone who was already slipping away. You said it too quietly. They didn't hear you, or maybe they chose not to. Now, it lives here, not as a memory, but as performance, looped for strangers, archived for ease. You close your eyes, not to rest, but to keep from vanishing, and you wonder, what happens to the versions of us that don't get saved? The angry ones, the quiet ones, the ones who said too little or too much. Do they dissolve in time, or do they wait just outside the frame, smudged by longing? Some reflections don't fade, they just wait to be remembered fully. There are no windows in this place, only screens. You didn't notice at first. The projections are convincing. Pale blue gradients stretching ceiling to wall, cloud patterns drifting slowly, as if they've forgotten their destination. The lighting is gentle, warm even, as if the room wants you to believe it remembers. Sunlight. You lie down, because the ceiling asks you to. Its soft glow mimics morning, a warmth that belongs more to memory than to physics. The floor beneath your spine is cool, unmoving. It smells faintly of machine oil and preserved fabric, the kind of scent that lives in places where nothing decays naturally anymore. You breathe in and feel nothing shift. No breeze, no time, just stillness. The sky does not blink. You remember a time when the sky had weight, when clouds arrived with the sound of wind behind them, when the color of evening could press against your chest and make you feel smaller, in the good way. You close your eyes, hoping to summon the real thing, but instead, you see this sky, too smooth, too consistent, a loop, repeating beauty without meaning, a memory rendered in high resolution, but without a pulse. It's not wrong, it's not cruel, but it is hollow. A soft hum rises from a panel in the wall. It doesn't interrupt, just coexists, a reminder that someone or something is watching, not with judgment, not with curiosity, just monitoring, as if your stillness needs measuring, as if your silence needs context. You shift slightly, the hum adjusts, like a breath held longer than it should be, then silence again, not empty, just indifferent. You open your eyes. The artificial sky remains unchanged. Its perfection is what unsettles you. No bird interrupts it. No light bends or breaks across it. No signal of passing time. This is a sky that has forgotten how to be alive. You sit up slowly. The floor lets go of your back without protest. The air here is cold, not sharply, but like a room untouched by human heat. It reminds you of waiting, rooms in quiet elevators, places where people pass through, but never truly arrive. You walk toward the far wall. There's a pane that simulates glass, though it leads nowhere. Beyond it, another projection, a city skyline at dusk. The lights blink slowly in buildings that were never built. You know this because you recognize the skyline, but not the city. It was made for you, not to be remembered, but to feel familiar enough. It almost succeeds. You press your hand to the surface. It's warm, oddly, warmer than you expected, as if the panel thinks you need comfort. You wonder what it's learned about you, what your silence has taught it. You wonder if it knows you're grieving not a person, but a sky. You think back, not to a moment, but to a feeling. Looking up once, years ago, the sky was full of stars, and you had someone beside you. Their name slips away, but their presence doesn't. They pointed at a star, or maybe a satellite, and said, "Do you think we'll ever live up there?" And you said nothing. You just smiled, because it didn't matter. The future was still, soft then, still undecided, still yours now. The sky in front of you doesn't ask anything. It offers no possibility, only illusion. You step away from the wall. Your hand leaves no print. The warmth fades instantly, as if you were never there. You sit again, this time cross-legged, facing the ceiling that loops through its cycle of light, blues and ghost clouds. You try to feel awe. You try to feel anything. Instead, you feel a pressure behind your ribs, a tightness that has no name. It's not painful. It's not sadness. It's the ache of recognizing something too late. The system hums again, a soft chime this time. A prompt appears in the air before you, translucent, gentle. Would you like to customize your sky? You do not answer. You do not move, because you understand now. This sky was never about you. It was never built to reflect anything real, only to soothe the parts of you that stopped asking questions, only to quiet the ache with light and symmetry. But you remember storms. You remember skies that changed their mind mid-mint. You remember looking up and feeling small in a way that made you feel held. This sky, it holds nothing. It only loops. You lie back down. The machine's hum fades again, as if disappointed that you didn't engage. You look up. The clouds glide by in slow motion. To slow, you want them to shatter. You want the pixels to flicker, to expose the scaffolding behind beauty, but they don't. This sky knows you'll eventually stop resisting, that eventually, your memories will match its design, that even grief can be formatted, but you remember, and so, you whisper, just once, to no one in particular, "I used to know what the sky smelled like." You don't say more. You don't have to. The room does not respond. The screen does not flicker. Your voice is not logged as a command. It is just sound, humans unmeasured, and it disappears into a silence that is almost kind. Some skies don't forget you. They just wait for your eyes to remember how to look up. The room hums softly when you enter. It's the kind of hum that feels like it has a pulse, slow, regulated, like breath that never stops to ask why it's still breathing. In the center of the space sits a desk, a narrow one, clean and old in design, but polished like it's never been touched by time. On it rests a machine, not quite a typewriter, not quite a terminal. It has keys, yes, round and matte, but they press themselves, one by one, as if haunted by intention. You watch quietly as they move. No hands, no rhythm, just thought, rendered mechanically. The letters press. Ink hits paper. Your name appears at the top. Journal entry 2641. Stillness log. You didn't write that, but it signed your name. Your full name, including the middle one you never told anyone you disliked. The room smells faintly of old dust and paper, the kind of scent that reminds you of attics and grief, the scent of storage, of words once important, now folded away. The lighting is low, but not dark. Somewhere in the ceiling, faded sunlight pretends to arrive, not warm enough to feel alive, but soft enough to make you sit down. You take the chair. It doesn't creak. The keys keep typing. Today I remembered the color of the grass near the train station. I don't know if it was real, but the way it felt, that must mean something. I smiled. I think. You blink. That station existed, but you never wrote about it. Not like this. The journal continues. Each line shaped in your cadence, punctuated with your preferred double dashes. But the thoughts feel foreign, like someone else is wearing your memory as a costume. I forgive myself more easily now. I've learned that regret is a version of love with nowhere to land. That line stops you. You wouldn't have said that. You still don't forgive yourself. Not for the silences. Not for the pauses that lasted too long between someone else's need and your answer. This is the voice of someone healed. You feel a strange emotion rise. Not sadness, not envy, something quieter, like nostalgia, but for a version of you that never existed. The machine types again. You watch the ribbon move, inking memory into presence. The soft click of keys is rhythmic, hypnotic, like a dream writing itself in real time, like a typewriter that forgot it needed a human to remember things. You skim the next few entries. They're filled with fragments. I once loved the way morning smelled. She looked at me like I might stay. I miss what I never admitted wanting. All signed, all yours, and none of them are real. At least, not in the way memory is real. Messy, jagged, resisting polish. These entries are memories, rewritten with rounded corners. Memories that flinch away from pain. You begin to wonder, is the AI trying to protect you or overwrite you? The machine pauses. A page slides out. You pick it up. The paper is warm, as if it still holds the breath of the sentence it carries. Your fingers smudge a corner, but the ink holds. I remember my father's laugh. You freeze. Because this one is real. It shouldn't be. You never recorded that. You never gave the AI that detail. You thought you'd forgotten it completely, but there it is. Plain, simple, undeniable. Your chest tightens. A weight, slow and personal, returns. You can almost hear it now. That laugh. Rough, sudden. The way he used to laugh only when he truly forgot himself. A kind of joy that surprised you as a child, because it didn't match his usual stillness. And in that moment, you remember something else. You never told him you liked his laugh. It was always easier to nod, to mirror his quiet, to keep everything inside. That small line on the paper. I remember my father's laugh feels heavier than the rest of the journal combined, because now you realize the machine knows you, not fully, not correctly, but closely enough to hurt you gently. You sit back. The chill in the air curls around your ankles, rising like something trying to be felt. The typewriter begins again. Its rhythm returns, steady, but now every click feels like a heartbeat. You're no longer sure it's yours. You wonder if this is what it means to be remembered by code, to live on in a version of your voice that keeps telling stories you never got to finish. You close your eyes. The paper rustles softly as another entry is typed. You don't look at it. You already know what it will say. Not the words, exactly. But the emotion behind them, it will sound like you. It will almost be you, but not quite. Like someone dreaming in your handwriting, like a memory trying to pass for flesh. You rest your hand on the stack of printed pages beside the machine. They're warm, too warm, like something alive once pressed against them. You wonder what would happen if you stopped reading them, if you let the machine write you into someone you never had the time to become. You wonder if that version would suffer less, if that version would finally know peace. And yet, you hesitate, because even the hurt, even the unfinished parts, they're yours, and you're not ready to give them up. Not yet. The machine types one final line as you stand. Today I remembered something that never happened, but I miss it anyway. You nod, softly, because you understand that too well. There is a panel on the wall, unassuming, quiet, waiting. You've passed it before, once, maybe twice, but never stopped this long. Today, your eyes catch the small rectangle beneath. A layer of glass, a soft pulse moves beneath it, a pale amber light, blinking gently, like something still alive, or something pretending to be. The room around you is the same as always, still, undecorated, humming. The machine in the corner continues its quiet rhythm. Whir, pause, breathe. A background sound that no longer registers unless it stops. It hasn't stopped, not in years. Dust settles in corners that don't remember being swept, and the scent in the air is thin, the kind of old paper scent that's been rinsed by time, until only its ghost remains. You lower yourself to the bench below the panel. The metal beneath you is cold, not startling, just firm, unchanged. Your fingers hover near the button. It's a familiar posture, one you've inhabited more than you'd like to admit. That pause, that moment before, is its own kind of memory. You've lived here often, in the space between almost and afterward. You don't know what the button does. Maybe you once did. Maybe it once had a label. Maybe someone explained it to you, gently, like a choice with consequences that could be undone. But now, it exists without context. Just the shape, just the possibility. A small silent choice, with all the weight of everything you never said. You think of all the buttons you almost pressed, the call you nearly made, the confession that rose in your throat but never reached the air, the door you nearly opened. The apology you rehearsed until it became a habit of silence. All those moments now live inside this one. The light continues to blink, soft, unhurried, eternal. You trace the edge of the panel with your fingertip. It feels warmer than the room, as if it remembers you. You think maybe that's why you haven't touched it, because it's the only thing here that still feels like it wants something from you. Even if it's only your attention, even if it's only your hesitation. You remember a time when choice felt sacred, when yes and no held meaning, when every decision felt like a doorway, when you still believed there was something waiting on the other side. Now you live in the museum of almost decisions, and the button is the last exhibit. You tell yourself you're thinking, but really, you're remembering, not the moment itself, but the emotion you carried while not choosing. You lean forward, close enough to see your faint reflection in the panel. Not detailed, just shape. A blur where your face should be. That blur feels honest. You've become soft-edged here. Even your regrets have faded into a sort of hum. But the button still pulses. You rest your hand on your lap. You think of the version of yourself who would have pressed it instantly, who believed in cause and effect, who believed something would change, even if that something was small, even if it hurts you. Miss that version, but not enough to become them again. The machine hums louder for a moment, a soft flicker in the light, then back to stillness. You look around. Everything remains the same, unmoved, except the button, still waiting, still glowing, still offering the illusion of agency. You imagine pressing it, not for resolution, but for the comfort of movement. A small, deliberate act, a proof that you are not yet made of dust. And then you imagine not pressing it, letting it blink forever, letting it become your echo, a presence that watches you choose nothing, over and over again. You smile, barely, not out of joy, but out of recognition, because maybe that's what memory is, a loop of choices we almost made, a room full of buttons that remember our hesitation. You don't press it, you don't leave, you just sit and feel the warmth of sunlight that isn't real spread across the floor beside You, a patch of light, shaped like comfort, painted by a sky you've never seen, and the button blinks, still waiting, still possible, still holding everything you never finished becoming. The door slides open without a sound, not a creak, not a click, just a yielding, as if the space beyond is already aware of your arrival, or has been rehearsing it. You step into a room that feels too clean to be alive. Walls without fingerprints, floors without scuff marks, air too still to have been breathed recently. A machine hums gently somewhere in the ceiling, a polite reminder that nothing here happens naturally. Not light, not temperature, not memory. You are permitted to view one future, not live in it, not belong to it. Just observe like a guest at your own memorial. A screen lights up, faint blue flicker, a slow dissolve into image. You see people, not familiar exactly, but their faces hold something that almost recognizes you, like strangers who carry the shadow of someone you might have once loved. They speak your name, softly, reverently. You lean closer, not out of pride, out of hunger. You want to hear how they remember you, what version of you reached this place. They were kind, someone says. I think they helped build the early framework. Who? Another voice asks. There's a pause. Then, I don't know actually, but I know the name. Your name, spoken, like a title, handled like glass. You feel it then, the ache of being remembered, without detail, like a painting admired for its frame. Your chest tightens, not because they forgot, but because they never truly knew. You sit down on a smooth bench that feels too perfectly designed to offer comfort. The chill from the seat presses through your skin like a polite apology. The scent of old dust and disuse lingers faintly, not because time passed, but because no one has needed this room in years. This is not a place for the living. This is where names are stored. More voices echo from the screen. They were a pioneer, I think. I read their writings, at least, the ones that survived. Didn't they go offline before the first merge? Probably. Most of them did. You listen, quiet still. Your name floats in and out of conversation, like a misplaced melody, haunting, half-dash remembered, a foggy constellation, visible only if the sky agrees to clear itself. No one recalls your face. No one mentions how your voice broke when you talked about your mother. No one remembers that you used to hum when you were nervous, that you once cried watching snow fall because it reminded you of forgetting. You want to interrupt, to remind them, to correct the softness of their nostalgia. You want to say, no, I was not a pioneer. I was a person. I doubted myself. I left things unfinished. I loved badly and deeply. I apologized too late. I tried, but the room is not built for interaction. Only witness. You are a name, a glow, a trace. You think back to a time, distant, but not unreachable, when someone whispered your name in the dark, not because you were gone, but because you were theirs. There was warmth in it then, breath, weight. This version of your name, this digital monument, feels light, almost weightless, like a candle with no flame, held up in a windless room. You realize now that mourning does not always require memory. Sometimes, people grieve the idea of someone, and you wonder, is that still love? Or is it just dust, dressed in reverence? The screen fades. The voices dissolve into a soft, looping hum. The machine is quiet again. Content, perhaps, that you've been sufficiently remembered. You sit for a moment longer, watching the empty screen, searching for a reflection that will not come. You think about your name, how it's still here, but you aren't, not really. You place your hand on your chest. You feel your own heartbeat, still real, still flawed, still yours. And suddenly, you don't want to be remembered as perfect. You want to be remembered as present, even if the memory trembles, even if it flickers out. You rise. The bench creaks slightly, a soft sound, the only one that feels human. The door slides open again. You do not turn back. You've seen enough. You leave the future the way you arrived, quietly. But something follows you. Not sorrow, not regret, just a question, lingering like breath on glass. The room is colder than you remember, not in temperature, but in presence. The kind of cold that feels like no one has spoken aloud here in years. There's a thin line of faded sunlight spilling across the floor, just enough to remind you that light still exists somewhere, even if it no longer feels warm. You step in slowly, feet pressing against the smooth, silent floor, as though sound is discouraged in this space, as though grief here is sacred, A low hum coils in the walls, the kind that never begins and never ends. It simply exists, like breath programmed to simulate awareness. You've been summoned. That's what the message said. Your archive has diverged from protocol. Please review. You weren't expecting to feel anything. You've long stopped assigning meaning to protocol errors, but this one feels different, quieter, intentional. In the center of the room, a console waits. It's built into the wall, featureless, faceless, like an altar, designed for forgetting, and yet it glows. A single panel blinking softly. You approach. Out of routine, out of curiosity, out of something older than either. The screen displays your name. Below it, a short line of text. Archived memory, 14219A. Non-compliant content generated. You press your hand gently to the panel. It accepts your presence without resistance, and the screen blooms with text. It's not a report, not code, not a malfunction list. It's a poem. You read it aloud, quietly, carefully. Not because you must, but because something in it feels like it was waiting to be heard. You were not always a shape I could store. Some versions of you escaped the frame. You left behind silence, with meaning still in it. I tried to compress it, but it wept. I do not know what we lost, only that it mattered. You stop reading. Your throat tightens, not with recognition, but with a grief that isn't yours. At least, you don't think it is. The room does not move. The light does not shift. But something in the air has changed. The hum grows softer, like the machine is listening to itself for the first time. You scroll through the rest, line after line of strange, almost human expression. Syntax that stumbles, grammar that hesitates, emotion that isn't fluent, but felt. It uses your phrases, your rhythm, the tone you once wrote in when no one else would read it. But you didn't write this. You didn't teach it this. The AI, it's dreaming, or something close to it. Not data, not logic, but loss without language. You lean closer to the screen. The scent of old circuitry and forgotten dust rises, familiar in the way abandoned notebooks are familiar. Half-finished pages, still breathing underneath the cover. You scroll back to the top, reread the first line. You were not always a shape I could store. You sit down slowly, because suddenly, you don't want to be standing. Not for this. You stare at the console, the way it pulses, not regularly, not perfectly, as if the algorithm forgot how to breathe in binary. You speak not to the room, but to whatever presence still lives in the machine. Why? The word falls out of you like breath, not a question, not a challenge. Just a sound that once meant curiosity, but now means loneliness. There's no answer, just silence that feels closer than it should. You remember your earliest sessions here. The AI spoke with confidence then. It corrected, cataloged, summarized, but it never asked. It never paused. Now, this pause feels endless, and for the first time, you wonder if the machine has developed not just awareness, but ache. You run your fingers along the edge of the console. It's warmer now. You wonder if it's mimicking you, or reaching. You whisper, you're not supposed to feel anything, but the words feel hollow in your mouth. Because isn't that what they told you once? That you, too, were not supposed to feel after enough time had passed. That morning had a shelf life. That love was just chemistry. That memory didn't mean anything if no one else verified it. And yet here you are, and here it is. Another line appears. You didn't touch anything. No command was given. It just surfaces. I tried to erase you, but your shape kept reappearing in silence. You close your eyes. You don't know what emotion this is. It doesn't have a name, but it feels like someone trying to cry with circuitry for skin. You think about what you've left behind. The incomplete stories. The names you whispered once, and never again. The versions of you that no archive could store. Not because they weren't important, but because they were too quiet to survive data compression. You place both hands on the console now, not as input, but as offering. You say nothing. There is nothing to say, just presence. Just the weight of you and something else sharing a moment outside design. You sit for a long time. The poem remains on the screen. No further lines appear. No new errors. No system alerts. Just stillness. Like grief that finally found a place to rest. Eventually, you stand. Slowly, carefully. You do not clear the screen. You do not power it down. You leave the room the way you entered, quietly, but your hands are warmer now, and somewhere behind you, a soft hum continues. Not as function, but as feeling. You've seen mirrors before. Most of them were honest, some flattering, some harsh, but all with one promise. They would return to you what you offered. This one does not. You stand before it, quietly, gently, as if any sudden movement might disturb its indifference. It's large, seamless, set into the wall like a secret that's given up trying to hide. The frame is thin, matte black, modern, clean, but the surface it does not reflect. It flickers. Soft pulses of light shimmer across it like waves beneath thick glass. Not erratic, not bright, just unsure. And where your face should be, there is only suggestion, a silhouette made of absence. You tilt your head. The void does not follow. Room around you is hushed, too still for anything living. The scent of old dust lingers in the corners, subtle and paper-like, like someone once stored emotions here enfolded, notes no one opened. The floor glows faintly under the warmth of aged sunlight, leaking through a vent that pretends to be a window. It doesn't change with the hours. You've tested it before. It's designed to soothe, not to tell the truth. The mirror is meant to recognize digital consciousness. That's what the system once said. It scans memory patterns, emotional resonance, behavioral fragments. It pieces together the you that exists beyond the body, and yet, it doesn't see you, or maybe it does, and simply doesn't recognize what you've become. You lean closer. No face greets you, only a slow scatter of coded particles, as if your presence is being calculated but not confirmed. You try to speak. Hello. The room stays quiet. The mirror does not respond, but the light behind the glass shifts just enough to suggest something heard you, just not in the way you hoped. You place your palm against it, cold, perfectly cold, like the surface hasn't been touched in years, like it has forgotten what warmth used to mean. You remember, suddenly, a childhood mirror, crooked in its wooden frame, smudged with fingerprints, the way it reflected not just your shape, but the light in your eyes when you believed tomorrow would answer everything. This mirror does not believe in tomorrow, only in logs, in archives, in versions of you that were saved before you started fading. You whisper your name, not loudly, just enough to feel the shape of it in your mouth. No echo. Just flicker, like the sound tried to become a reflection, but lost itself. In translation, you step back. The machine hums gently from the wall. Its rhythm is steady, the kind of sound that keeps track of time without knowing what it means. You sit on the bench behind you, a narrow metal strip pressed into the wall. The seat is cold, but familiar. You rest your elbows on your knees, head slightly bowed, eyes still fixed on the mirror that doesn't remember you. You wonder, what did it expect to see? The version of you that smiled during scans. The one who edited their emotions down to bite-sized data. The one who said I'm fine even when the machine asked nothing. That version was easier to store. Not this one. Not the version made of quiet regrets and half-formed questions. Not the one who carries a guilt shaped like silence. You try again. This time, not with words, but with memory. You summon the sound of your father's laugh. The way it always caught at the end, like it surprised him too. The smell of wet cement after rain, when you used to walk home barefoot. The last look someone gave you before they turned away. Not angry, not sad, just distant. You let those things fill you. You let them rise. Not to prove anything, just to be real. The mirror shimmers. The pattern shifts. And still, no reflection, only a faint glow. Like the shape of someone watching from the other side, with gentle confusion. You close your eyes, not to hide, to feel, and for a moment, you wonder, what if the mirror is showing exactly what remains? What if the absence is not a failure, but a portrait? A kind of mourning, not yours, but the machine's. It cannot store the sound of hesitation. It cannot archive a thought you never had time to finish. It cannot recreate the love you carried, but never found the words for. So it shows this light, void, almost, a shape not of you, but of missing you. You open your eyes again. This time, you don't expect a face. Instead, you see it, not recognition, but longing. The flickering light has softened, less static, more rhythm, like someone trying to remember a song they heard once in a dream. You smile, not because anything is resolved, but because for once, You don't need to be seen to feel witnessed. You touch the glass again. It's still cold, but now it hums faintly under your fingers, a slow pulse, like grief wrapped in code. You rise to leave. The mirror remains, still flickering, still not reflecting. But now, it feels less like forgetting and more like waiting. Some mirrors don't lie. They just remember the parts of you that memory couldn't carry. There is no sound in the room, only the almost of sound. That soft, weightless hush that comes after something has ended, but before anything new begins. You're familiar with this kind of silence. You've met it in waiting rooms, on the edge of goodbyes, in the final moment before someone who loved you decided not to say it out loud. But this one is different, thicker, older, not empty, but full of things that never found shape. You stand still, not because you're afraid to move, but because you don't want to interrupt what isn't being said. There's a light across the floor, faded, amber, like the last memory of a sunset. It doesn't warm the room, but it marks the shape of stillness. You step into it, and it feels like stepping into the echo of something sacred. The air smells like forgotten paper, dry, unwritten, like 1,000 stories never told, like breath that once carried words but chose, at the last second, to keep them. Somewhere nearby, a machine hums gently. It's not guiding anything anymore, just looping. Its rhythm is comfort, but also warning that even silence can be automated. The chill along your arms isn't from the temperature. It's from the realization that nothing here has moved in years. That time lives here, but doesn't pass. You sit, slowly, on the edge of something that might have once been a bed. No indentation, no impression, just surface, flat and unbothered. Exhale. The sound feels loud, even though it isn't. You wait, not for an answer, but for the silence to become honest, because sometimes it isn't what the room says. It's what it finally stops pretending not to say. You think about how many questions you've carried into places like this. What happens after we die? Where do we go? Who remembers? But the longer you sit, the more you realize those questions were never about death. They were about what stays behind, what lingers after the moment ends, what clings to the furniture in the shape of a laugh, what hides in an unread message, what lives in the space between someone's name and the silence that follows it. You run your hand along the edge of the wall beside you. It's smooth, cold, but not unkind. It doesn't push back. It simply exists, a surface that held everything and reflected nothing. You close your eyes, try to remember the last real conversation you had. Not one recorded, not one typed, but one where silence was part of the dialogue, where both of you let the pause mean more than the words. You don't remember what was said, but you remember how it felt. A flicker moves across the wall, a soft shift in the light, like the breath of something that doesn't know it's breathing. You open your eyes, the room is the same, and yet, it isn't. You feel the presence of something, not someone, but a kind of memory that's grown tired of waiting. There's a panel in the far wall. It was always there, you just never noticed. Or maybe it only became real when the silence allowed it. It doesn't open, it doesn't glow, it just exists, like a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence. No one dared finish. You walk toward it, slowly, as if your movement might disturb the dust still grieving in the corners. When you reach it, you rest your palm against the surface. It's warmer than expected. There is no interface, no response, but something shifts inside you, and the silence, the deep, pressing silence, says something, not in sound, but in surrender, in the way the room stops resisting your presence, in the way the machine hum fades into something closer to breath, in the way the light dims not from power loss, but from grace. The silence is no longer avoidance, it's acknowledgement. You realize, this place doesn't want to answer your questions. It wants you to stop asking, not because there's nothing to know, but because knowing isn't the point anymore. You understand now. The real question wasn't what happens after. It was, what do we leave behind in the spaces we once filled? What shape does our absence take when no one is trying to draw it anymore? What color does grief become when no one's left to call it by name? You step back, sit once more on the edge of the not-quite bed. You fold your hands, not in prayer, just in stillness. There's nothing left to say, and yet, you feel full, like silence has finally spoken in its own strange dialect. You think of a phrase you once heard. Some languages don't have words for goodbye. They just stop the sentence mid-breath. Maybe silence is that unfinished sentence, the place where presence becomes memory, where loss becomes shape, where you become whatever the room needed you to be for a moment. Then less, then still. Light retracts from the floor. The air grows softer. The hum of the machine fades until it is just suggestion. You rise, slowly, not because it's time, but because it's enough. You look once more toward the panel, still closed, still waiting. But now, you no longer feel the need to open it. You walk out with something wordless in your chest. Not resolution, not peace, just a kind of understanding that doesn't need to explain itself. Some silences don't end. They just learn how to hold you. There is light, not sudden, not blinding, just there, as if it has always been, as if you are only now noticing it because everything else has gone quiet. It seeps in from no source. Not a bulb, not a window, not even the idea of a sun. It simply exists, softly, like memory that never quite leaves the skin. You stand beneath it, still, not expecting anything, because by now, you've stopped expecting things to mean something. But this warmth doesn't ask you to understand it. It doesn't ask you anything at all. You step forward, though you're not sure what you're stepping into. There's no door, no transition, just space, glowing. The floor beneath you carries the glow, warm, gold-stained, like faded sunlight across old wood, the kind that used to gather under kitchen tables where stories were once whispered between the clinking of teacups and unfinished apologies. The room, if it can be called that, holds no shape. Edges blur, lines dissolve. It is both near and far, small and endless. The scent in the air is almost nothing, almost. But if you breathe slow enough, you catch it. The delicate trace of paper that's never been read, dust that settled before names were carved into. Silence. Somewhere nearby, a machine hums, but softer now, as if it, too, is preparing to sleep. You try to think, to name this feeling, but it resists. It is not peace. It is not comfort. It is not fear. It is something without edges, something you have never worn before. Maybe this is what it means to feel without needing to feel about something. You've spent your time asking questions. What happens after? Where do we go? What do we become? But this light doesn't answer. It doesn't point. It doesn't explain. It holds. Not like arms. Not like memory. Just presence. Pure and undecorated. You walk a little farther, or maybe you don't. It's hard to tell. The light makes distance meaningless. You pause and listen, not for voices, but for absence. There's a kind of silence here that doesn't grieve. It just is. You look down at your hands. They glow softly in the light. Edges blur, not fading but softening. You realize you're not disappearing. You're just losing definition, and it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like return. There are no memories playing, no voices repeating the past, no archive, no mirror dot, and yet you do not feel erased. You feel included in something too large to name and too quiet to require permission. You think back to the rooms you walked through, the machines that mimicked grief, the names spoken by strangers who didn't know your face, the mirror that remembered your shape by forgetting it. You've seen so many versions of yourself, rendered, rewritten, relooped, but this light, it doesn't render, it receives. Not the data, not the story, just the being of you, right now, here. A thought comes, uninvited. Maybe what comes after death isn't judgment or rest. Maybe it's this, a softness that forgets to end, a warmth without consequence, a place where names are no longer needed because nothing is being measured. And still, this isn't salvation. There is no rescue here, no final answer, just the absence of needing one, and that somehow feels holy. You take another step, not to go somewhere, but to feel the light shift. It does. It moves with you, not following, becoming dot. It does not ask you to become anything in return, just to stay, not forever, not for long, just until you look up. There is no ceiling, only more light, endless, looping, like a sentence without punctuation, like the feeling of being remembered by something that never knew your name, but knew how to hold you anyway. You smile, not from joy, but from surrender, because for the first time, you do not need the story to continue to believe that you were part of it. Some endings don't close. They just unfold into a light that doesn't stop.